All right, Jeremy Miner here with our co-host, Matt Ryder, who is in our Sydney, Australian office, which unfortunately we can't get into right now because of freaking COVID, where you're at another lockdown. You're always locked down in your country. Well, we live here in the land of the free, going to movie theaters and all the crazy stuff, you know? So
welcome to a movie theater like 6 months.
I was at the movie theater this weekend. Our movie theaters just opened back up a couple months ago.
Obviously,
there's not hardly any movies. They're playing like reruns from 3 years ago, but at least there's somewhere to go. You know what I mean? All right. So welcome to another episode of Closers Are Losers. Today, Matt, I said, hey, Matt, why don't you pick a subject that you really want to go over? What's it's going to be? It's like a mystery shopper today. What are we talking about?
Yeah. So what I wanted to do is I guess from a lot of the coaching that we do in some of our, I guess even higher end sort of lower ticket programs is around one of the common things I get is, Matt, what do I do when someone says I need to think about it? I'm like, well, man, sort of like asking how do you untie a knot without being able to see how the knot was made.
Right.
It's you have to know how the knot's made to know how to untie it, right? So it's these are upstream issues that I see.
Yeah.
Which is a lack of urgency. A lack of urgency is built from what I think is two things.
Yeah.
One is a lack of clarity on the vision, where are we going?
Yeah.
And the other one is a lack of taking that away, an actual acceptance of failure. They think, okay, this would not be good.
So it's like a doctor that's just treating the symptoms of the disease rather than treating how the disease even started, finding the root cause of it and fixing it.
Exactly. Okay. Taking cough medicine will not do anything. It makes you feel better, but doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So you're talking about, in any industry, it doesn't matter if you're selling B2B or B2C, you're always going to get, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get a lot of, I want to think it over. And that's what Matt is saying is that's pretty much triggered by you not knowing the right questions that builds urgency in their mind that they need to change their situation now and do that with you. And that triggers them to say, I want to think it over. So we can show you how to help them overcome that, but why not learn how to prevent that objection from really happening in the first place?
I think a lot of that comes from so in the NEPQ, for those of you who are new here, we teach a methodology that Jeremy developed called NEPQ, which is neuro-emotional persuasion questioning. And it's where we sell with behavior and get some of the old school tactics are if someone does this, let's do this. And it's kind of it's just sort of
it's like a
that's what they naturally want to do.
Most salespeople are taught
exactly
a reaction, right? The push, I call it the push-pull dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what we want to do is we want to have a sales process that the person feels comfortable in.
Yeah.
Because if someone's comfortable, they'll generally tell you more things.
Yeah. So you're getting them to want to engage with you, to actually want to open up to you. And they're only going to do that if they feel comfortable and they actually have some type of trust, even in the beginning of that conversation, for sure.
Exactly. And so the two key phases that I think that have to do with urgency and wanting to move forward now is solution and consequence. And so we might actually have slightly differing views on this because I think we've sold in different industries.
Sure.
And so we've had different experiences. And for me, it is all about future pacing out what happens when they hit the outcome. Right. And it's all about let's create the vision. Let's move. Let's really explore that. I like to go into a lot of detail for me personally, because I think the detail really creates if someone's oh, I'd love to be able to travel. I'll ask them, where would you travel? And
that would be if you're selling something, because I know the industry, one of the biggest industry you came from was the coaching space where you were selling products and services that were maybe Amazon that taught them how to get out of their job, or real estate training, or B2B, B2B scaling company training, all that type of stuff. So it's more about when they get
definitely not for insurance.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you're talking about. It's not for insurance. And I'll give some examples for different industries on the other side as well, because it's very similar, but there's a few other differences for sure. Keep going. I cut you off.
Yeah. So you can get it in different industries. For example, in solar, if you figure out the underlying motivation behind why they want solar, to save money. Why do you want to save money? Because I want to be able to send my kids to college. Yeah. Okay. Well, what college would you want to send them to? Right. And so I like to go into detail and ask very random questions who's the first person you'd call when you were actually able to book this? Because these are questions that they've never asked themselves before. And then the visualization of doing that creates a reality. And then that reality is really pleasant.
Well, it's like, one of our clients, Ryan Serhant, because I was talking to, one of our account managers who sells for him, Will, right? And Will was saying, hey, the way we're changing the solution awareness question to get them to, because they're selling to realtors that want to, increase their social media presence, increase their brand, to get more listings, to become like Ryan Serhant, the famous guy on Bravo, New York, or $1 Million Listing New York. It's a great show.
Yeah.
And so one question that we changed, I guess, that you helped them with as well to get them to vision that is, you basically, one of the solution awareness questions was, hey, let's say that we're able to help you get these type of listings, get you this type of income, and you repeat back what they really want to make as a real estate agent. Let's say it's $500,000 a year, whatever it is. Who's the first person you're going to call at that point? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's like, these are questions that they're like, oh, and then when I tie back through, one of the most important questions of the whole script, which I think is underappreciated, is, and how close are you to being able to do that? And I'll link it back to that specific vision, and how close are to be able to actually make that. And so it ties in all this gravity and emotion. They just go, I'm not close at all. And then in my consequence question, me personally, I don't relate it back to the problem. I relate it back to never achieving the solution. Right. So what happens if you don't do anything, you don't make any changes, and you never figure out how to actually put yourself in a position where you can make the phone call saying that. And then I go like, what happens then? And then so I try and build the emotion up, because like I'm used to selling things where there's very little second bites at the cherry.
Yeah.
And like fitness and coaching. So we're selling information essentially, right? For a lot of money, a $30,000 piece of information.
Yeah.
And so I need to get that person in such a frenzy that they need to solve the problem. And so drilling down on emotion and specifics for me, like for what I've sold, is super important.
Yeah, and it's important. So it's your future pacing, getting them to vision making the phone call, if that's what you're selling. Now, if you're selling cybersecurity to Bank of America, you're of course not going to say that. It's going to be too different. But with what you're talking about with that industry, for sure. And then you can come back after they said how it's going to make them feel and what it's going to do for them to make that phone call. And then you come back and say, but here's a way you can actually put in both the consequences of not solving it. And, if they can't make the phone call, you can, and this is what I told Will, our account manager, say, hold on, what will you do though, if you don't do anything about this? Your brand stays the same, your leads stay the same, you don't get up to $500,000 a year, and then you can't even make the phone call. What are you going to do at that point? So it's like a way to tie in the consequence of not solving the problem and not getting to do what they want, kind of in the same question. A little bit of a spin.
Yeah. But it's like, it's all about, once you understand your process really well, then you just make choices. Like we do some recruitment for some companies, and they come on and be like, well, should we do this? Should we do this? And I'm like, well, like, I don't know. Let's just have a look at the data and then make a choice to make a small change, see what kind of impact that has. And then we continually make small choices, which over time will have a large impact. But that's what really understanding your process does for you, is it gives you that ability and that dynamicism to be able to actually make choices within your sales process.
No, 100%. Yeah. So no matter what you sell, like even if you, just give an example, let's say if you sold cybersecurity to banks to help them, reduce fraudulent charges or hackers or whatever it is, people stealing money out of their customers' accounts, it can still be a future paced question to see, what will happen once their problems are solved that they didn't even realize they had when they first got into that conversation with you. Because like we always say, most of your prospects, when you first start talking to them, do not realize they even have a problem. Or maybe they think they have a problem, but they don't know how bad it is. Or maybe they don't know the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about solving the problem. Or maybe through your questioning, you learn, NEPQ, you're able to help them see in their mind 2 or 3 or 4 other problems they didn't even realize they had, which causes them to view you as the expert, the authority that's going to solve those problems. So in that type of selling environment, B2B complex selling environment, it's not like, hey, who are you going to call once this is solved? Like, how's that going to make you feel? It's a little bit different, right? It's more like, okay, besides, fixing this issue, X and Y and Z, how do you see this benefiting you the most though? So it's kind of like we have to rearrange the solution awareness questions, and we can still ask them that same question. Like, but hold on though, like with what you're doing right now with A, B, and C vendor, how close are you to, and then you repeat back what they said they wanted. Okay. Depending on the industry. Now, if they say, oh, we're only halfway there, we're still having all these fraudulent charges or whatever, like I said, if you're selling cybersecurity. So by staying with that vendor, and just be real with me, how many months or years is it going to take you before you're achieving and you repeat back what they want? And that gets them to realize that if they keep doing what they're doing, staying in the status quo, that they're never going to get what they want. And that's how you do that. It doesn't matter if it's selling coaching like you were just talking about, or B2B or insurance. It's all the same. It just has to be restructured a little bit differently. The question has to be tweaked a little bit.
And that's exactly right. It's like, I think I did a video on YouTube the other day, and it was like why people suck at sales. And the number one reason was because you think your industry is special. Yeah. Like you do. People think their industry is special. It's not. Raise your hand if you sell human beings. Yeah. Exactly. That's the common thread. So there's a common thread amongst how you sell. Now you might rearrange things and the processes might be slightly different, but the journey you have to take somebody through is the same. Doesn't matter if you're selling $100 product or $100 million product. It's just the questions might be phrased differently. Yeah. It might take longer, but essentially you've got the same thing. You've got to understand their problem, understand the outcomes they're looking for, understand the consequences of not achieving the solution and not solving the problem. And then from there, present your offer and do what you need to do. Like, that's it.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I can see that. So like in our Facebook group, Sales Revolution, we have like 8,000, salespeople, business owners that have joined that in the last 6 months or 7 months since we started it. And we see so many testimonials, which is awesome. We see about 3 to maybe 8, 10 different testimonials every single day. Salespeople going through the virtual training courses that we offer, the training, our sales training programs that people are in, getting massive results. And you know what the first question, like we had somebody post in there, and I don't even know what they sold, but they posted in there like, man, I made $25,000 in commissions this week. And they had all these people and they're like, oh my gosh, what industry are you in? I need to sell that so I can make more money. And the guy
sells marketing for gyms.
Yeah. And the guy said, look, guys, it has nothing to do with my industry. He's like, I was selling this 2 years ago and I was making $3,000 to $4,000 a month in commissions. And in fact, the average salesperson in my space makes less than $4,000 or $5,000 a month. The reason why I made 25,000 commissions this week and I average about 60,000 a month in commissions is because of what I'm learning from Jeremy and Matt and the 7th level team in the virtual training courses. Has nothing to do with my industry. It has to do with my skill level. That's the difference.
He's not even in Inner Circle.
He's not. Yeah, he's just our 2.0 or our 3.0 training program. Once he gets in Inner Circle, he'll make even more than that once he learns the ins and outs even more. So I always see that when people post like these big, like I made $10,000 in commissions this week, or this month I made 25,000 commissions, or last month I made 63,000 in commissions, all types of industries, insurance, real estate, car salespeople, boat salespeople, SaaS, B2B, B2C, it doesn't really matter. All these different industries. And the first question people say is, what industry you're in? I need to get in your industry. And it's like, hilarious. People just slap them around. It's not the industry, your skill.
I made $400 million. What did you do? I'm a professional basketball player. Oh man, I got to get in that industry.
No, it's true.
Okay. For sure, right. Dude. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, go do that.
You better practice your jump shots a little bit better, So it's a lot of people think that, and it's not their problem. It's just the way, it's just kind of the way the sales mentality has been conditioned to believe that it's not your fault if the prospect says no, or I want to think it over, your price is too high, and you can't help them overcome that it's their fault, right? That's what our sales managers want us to think, so we don't, get down and depressed when all it really is it's our fault. It's our responsibility that we can't help that prospect overcome their own concerns so they can get out of the status quo, solve their problems, and get where they're wanting to be. I see so many salespeople, that we train that come to us because we do a lot of group training as well, besides the virtual training courses. And even companies sometimes will say this, and they'll be like, oh, this prospect was so hard. A lot of my leads, they just have limiting beliefs. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Most
Yeah, most people do.
Most people do.
So do you.
It's
That's why
your
you
job.
think it's your prospects.
Yeah, it's your job as a sales professional to help them overcome their limiting beliefs and fears about changing. All selling is change. It's about how good you are at helping the prospect see in their mind, changing their situation, solving their problems, having what they want right here is far less riskier than them doing nothing at all, staying in the status quo, problems stay the same, and nothing ever changes. Which is more risky? When you help them realize that it's far more riskier to do nothing and still have the same problems, that helps them overcome their way of thinking that's held them back to never do anything about this situation. And so it's your job as a sales professional to help them overcome those limiting beliefs. If you can't, you're not going to make very much money.
Absolutely. It's the same old story. It's a funny one. I don't really know where it comes from. I think I really don't, because
it's just like Tony Robbins. If you watch him on stage, or you've been to his events, or even watch him on YouTube, and he'll go down into the state, into the crowd of, let's say, 3,000 or 5,000 people, and somebody will stand up and start telling their sob story. And 10 minutes later, he's asked them certain questions that have allowed them to see that they have their own power to overcome their situation and have what they want. He's helping them overcome their limiting beliefs. Now, if Tony couldn't do that, people wouldn't be paying him to watch him on stage, would they? Yeah. So that's your job as a salesperson, to do the same thing.
Yeah. I think I looked at it the other day because I was doing a video. The average salesperson makes $59,937 a year.
Maybe in Australia, in American, it's like 43,000.
Yeah. Well, that's probably is the same when you work it out in terms of exchange. But I was just like, man, like that's a rough living.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about in Australia, man, like that's tough.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, 59,000 in Australian dollars is probably about 45 grand in US, which is about the same. That's what the average salesperson makes over here in North America.
Yeah. Like the difference between, I didn't tell my wife about the pays that we were getting this month because I wanted to see her face, because I paid, commissions and dividends and all that kind of stuff. And I put double in my bank account this month than what I used to make in an entire year.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just because it's funny. Like and there's nothing different about me. I'm the same person. Yeah. I've always had I think a pretty good mindset, like a go get 'em positive attitude. It's just simply the skill level that I have now is I'm fairly confident that if I get someone on the phone, I can close them into whatever I want.
Yeah. 100% true. You're exactly right. It's all about your skill level.
Yeah, I have no stress whatsoever about money, because I knew even if everything collapsed, I could just find something to sell.
Yeah.
There's always something to buy. People always want to buy something. I can just be the
if it's the end of the world, people are going to be buying more guns and bullets and food, right?
Exactly. I'll just start selling that. What happens if you don't get any food? Your family starves to death.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. It's just like sales is the reason why I like sales is because it's very similar to sports or the military. It's like the better you are at your job, the higher up you go.
People always complain about these salary jobs. Let me give you an example, like teachers. I've got some family members that are teachers. In fact, my mom was a teacher, and they're definitely underpaid for sure, 100% for sure. But I'd always hear complaints from, family and friends like, oh my gosh, they don't pay me that much and blah, 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 blah. And I totally get it. Definitely should be paid more. It's important to educate future generations and have good people to do that. But the problem is when you're in a job that most people can do, now you've become commoditized. Because most people can do it, they can pay you a lot less, because if you don't want to do it, they're just going to find somebody who is willing to do it, right? The reason why LeBron James makes $35 million a year playing basketball is because there's hardly anybody on planet Earth that can dunk a basketball or pass the basketball or shoot a three-pointer like he can. That's why he gets paid so much. That's what it is. People always complain like, oh, those star athletes make so money. They make so much money. Well, that's because they have skills that hardly anybody has. Yeah. If you had the same skills, you'd get paid a lot of money. But if you're in a regular, normal job that anybody can do for the most part with limited training, Well, they're not going to pay you that much because your skill level is not in demand. When you're a sales professional that learns these type of skills that Matt and I are talking about, you become highly in demand. Everybody wants you to work for them. They will pay you whatever they can for you to sell their products and services if you have the right skills. You can go anywhere and do anything you want because you have the skill level. If you don't have the skill level, you're just another commoditized salesperson. Good luck trying to get the job you want.
And if you want to think of it in a different way, LeBron James is so good at his job, people want to wear a t-shirt with his name.
That's right.
So like, are you good enough at your job to where people want to wear a t-shirt with your name on it? Are people walking around your company with Barry written on the back of their shirt because Barry's a legend of his time? Like, that's no, right. It's not. Like the guy's just really good at what he does. And for that, he gets paid probably fairly, I would say, considering how much money he makes the teams that he works for. It's just those guys are really good. And like when I see somebody pull up with $1 million car, I go, wow, I wonder what they do.
They must have a skill level that most people don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to want to like door knock. Like there's a place in Sydney called Billionaires Row. Not a single piece of real estate is less than 100 million.
Wow.
Right? There's a whole street.
Okay.
Every single house is traded for 100. The smallest house traded for like 92 or something like that. I would love to just door knock. Be like, hey, what do you do? Like, I just love to find out. I don't think they'd take it.
As the butler comes to the door, it's almost like a cold call to get through the gatekeeper to find out what the billionaire does.
Yeah. There's just one house. And me and my wife, because we're all about, again, future pacing and vision, after every date night, we go for a drive down that road.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm going to buy one of these houses. Like this is my goal, is to buy one of these houses.
Yeah, when you're constantly thinking about those things and viewing those things, and then when you start to be around those type of people, you kind of go up to their level, right? And we're getting on a different subject, but it's important, right? So if you want to be around if you want to become successful at sales, you got to be around a culture, a company, a training company, or whatever that's going to, number one, teach you the right skills, because there's a lot of bad skills you can learn that are going to hurt you. And you got to be around the right culture. You got to be around a culture that really wants you to succeed, that really gives you the tools to succeed, the right training to succeed. That's a culture you want to be around, because you're going to up your game. There's going to be a lot more competition. People are going to be better, and you can be the big fish, not just in a little pond, but you can be the big fish in a big pond.
Absolutely, you can. And I think, the future, the vision, like Ryan Serhant, he always has a paper in his right hand pocket with him where he'll be in 10 years.
I love that.
He has it in his pocket every single day. And whenever he goes to like make a decision, he just like touches it and he's like, does this take me away or towards?
That is really good. I like that.
Yeah. And he only ever goes towards. And it's like, when I was a sniper, they used to have a thing, aim small, miss small, right? Like, you don't want to shoot a chest. You want to shoot like the nipple. You know what I mean? Because the smaller you aim, the smaller you'll miss, right?
Interesting.
So if you have a very, very clear vision of the future, then you go for it. Like, if you ever think about it, if I go into ballistic, at 100 meters, right? If you miss by 1 centimeter to the left, right? At 1,000 meters, that is 1 meter.
Wow.
Right? So if like that's a miss. So you're going from a nose to an eye, like 1 centimeter. Right. But at 1,000 meters, that's you missed by a full meter.
Wow.
Right? So like you have to aim incredibly small, because the trajectory of where it's going has to be incredibly accurate. To shoot a target at 1,000 or 15 or 2,000 meters, you have tolerances of like nanometers. Like they're crazy. Tiny, tiny, tiny tolerances. And so and you have to shoot in between your heartbeats and all kinds of stuff when you're shooting at like long distances. And that's because you have to have a clear vision of what you're trying to do. It has to be extraordinarily precise. And I think that's why we even did a session last week about where are we in 10 years, what are we doing? And the more clarity you have around that stuff, the more you're willing to do it. Yeah. And the easier decision-making becomes. Well,
yeah. I mean, it's true. We have a lot of business owners that listen to the show, obviously a lot of sales professionals as well. But if you're a business owner, you have to have both. But a business owner, you really have to have clarity of where you're going to take your team. Like, what are you going to do? Where do you want to go so you can hire the right team? Not only do you hire the right team, but you have to have your team be trained by a company that knows what they're doing so you can get to that level. I've seen so many companies. We've had so many clients come to us that were trained from other companies that have been around for 30, 40, 50, 60 years that just don't get hardly any results. And it wasn't their fault. They just didn't know what they didn't know. They were still using old school techniques that just don't work anymore with today's sophisticated, cautious, skeptical buyers. We live in the information age, completely different than even 10, 15, 20 years ago, let alone 30, 40, 50 years ago. So if you're a business owner, have the right vision, get clarity. Where do you want to go? What type of revenue do you want to get to? What type of people do you have to hire? And then what type of skills are they going to need to learn to help you get to that point? If you're a sales professional, the same thing. What type of culture do you want to be involved in? What type of skills do you want to learn to make the type of money? If you have an income goal, okay, what type of skills do I need to learn, sales skills, to be able to hit that income goal? Can I just keep doing what I'm doing and somehow triple my income? Probably not. You're going to have to learn advanced skills, advanced questions, advanced tonality to get to that level if you want to succeed in that height.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say before we sort of leave is that like on that, what I used to do, which I think is helpful for everybody listening, is I would vision out, okay, where am I in 10 years time? Be very precise. Like, where am I from a cash flow? How much money have I got? Like actually cash in bank, investments, everything. And then it's like, what is my business and like, where am I at? And then as I visualize myself walking into that office with those employees, with that much money, with doing that, whatever it is, what does that guy know that I don't?
Mm.
And then from there I go, okay, well, that guy is a sales killer. All right, cool. Got to become a sales killer. That's number one. That guy understands finance better. He understands foreign exchange better. He understands this and this. There's a whole bunch of things you won't know that you need to understand, but the things that you can figure out is you just go, okay, well, that's my professional development plan for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? It's like, all right, cool. What's the lowest hanging fruit? Is it sales? Is it Forex? Is it, business acumen? Like, what is it? And then I just put a development plan in place for all of them. Make sure that in 3 years' time, I know all this stuff back to front.
100%. All right. Well, let's go ahead and end the show. Thanks, Matt, for being on. I know we had some internet problems. I know you're at home working today because freaking office is shut down because freaking COVID in Australia. I swear, if you guys have one person that gets COVID, your whole country panics and locks down for a month. Anyways, stay safe out there. We'll see everybody next week. If you have not yet joined our Facebook group, go there, do that now. It should be a link here, Sales Revolution. Matt and I and our team of sales trainers go live in there 4 or 5 times a week. A lot of valuable tips, Q&As, trainings. We break down sales process of different companies we train, different salespeople we train, so you can hear that. Give a lot of little golden nuggets here and there for you guys, even outside of our virtual training courses. So join Sales Revolution. When you join, we ask you a couple, 2 or 3 questions to find out what industry you're in, what you're looking to accomplish. And then we DM you a training for free, 45-minute training on objection prevention right when you join, how to prevent objections from even happening in your prospect's mind. Stay safe, everybody. Stay safe, Matt. I'll see you next week. Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here, Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.